Hi, I'm DrJLT, and in this video series, I walk you through some of the photos that I've taken in the past. I think it has been a few videos in which I have been talking about the photos that I've taken in Bruges, in Belgium, in the summer of 2018. I think this time let's speed up and really finish this album so we can come so that we can move on to other albums. I have over 100 of them, so and they are still over 100 of them and counting, right? So let's just speed up a little bit here. So this, I believe, was where we left off last time. Let me change this to a full screen mode, so probably looks a bit better. Last time was here, and this was, I think, part of the hospital in Bruges, a very old one. And I think, yeah, this is the church, the bell tower, which is quite amazing. Not really in proportion to the church, which is more modest. And in front, in the foreground, we see part of the hospital and a part of a museum. We talked about that last time. And these are the towers of that church. And as I mentioned, these towers, they do look somewhat, how to say, from a different era. Probably they were, they look more, I would say, like 10th century, whereas the rest of the building looks more like 15th century. So there's something different there. Roman style church, and these towers are different style. So this is a chapel, and this is another view of that church. Actually, you can see here this church. So it has two facades. So something unique. Probably there were two buildings, or maybe they were built in two stages. I don't really know. This is another street. As you can see here, the focal length I used was a little bit towards the long end, so that there's a little bit of a space compression here, but nevertheless you can get a clear view of the architecture there along that street. I think these houses are quite interesting, especially with the flagpoles. Again, that day, I think, at least those days, there was, I believe, World Cup, and Belgium was winning one of those days. So they were drinking, and this probably was a bar, and there are many bars in Belgium, naturally. And this is a very interesting arc. I think Pro Patria. I don't know if this has anything to do with some government building, but very interesting. And here, this is another view of the central bell tower, and further towards the bottom right of the frame, you could see the Grand Market. And yeah, just take it all in. I think it is a very beautiful sight, especially when it's sunny. And I like it best when it is sunny, but at the same time there are clouds, because then you don't get that very strong and bearable sunlight, and you at the same time have a little bit better lighting. It's not unbearably harsh when you take photo. So I think this is probably as good as it gets in Bruges, because after all, that area, the western part of Belgium, is known to be gloomy and rainy, and I lived there, so I know. But they had some good days, and when it was a good day, it was really good. So that was one of the good days. Here is another street. This, I believe, it would be just 200 meters to the, I would say, northwest of the church that we spent a lot of time on last week, in the last video, and we see it's very interesting. I think a point that's worth noting about architecture in Belgium is that unlike places like, for example, Rome or Paris or France in general, let's say, where there had been long traditions of civil planning, in Belgium there wasn't any civil planning until I think deep into the 1990s, and even now it is still much looser. So traditionally people built houses as they wished, and but of course they wanted to build beautiful houses, and they wanted to one up their neighbors. So you see a very interesting thing about Belgian houses is that one next to the other, they are almost always different, and when they are not different, as the case of here in the distance, you see these two houses are the same. They're probably built by the same person. Probably was brothers, two brothers built the same houses. And here is another view of that bell tower. I think probably doubled also as a prison or some sort. And so you see the tower, the watch towers, very interesting. And here, this is I would say 150 meters from the main from the church and bell tower with which we spent a lot of time in the last video. So this place is I would say if we move forward about 40 meters, it's actually here, right? So I think if I remember correctly, and this is when I backtraced. No, sorry. This is actually another church. So in Bruges there are several churches, and this is another one, and this one is I would say in the west side of the city, and it had again a tower, very interesting there. And this is a view of a row of houses. I think this is some type of government building. I'm not entirely sure what it is, and as an exception, I don't actually quite remember where this building is. So this is another view of the central bell tower. So I like to just remind you that something messed up about the ordering in this album. I think in later albums it got fixed, but this one I don't quite remember what I did there. But the order was not in chronological, doesn't reflect the order in which the photos are taken, so that we get a little bit of jump back and forth. But I still think the overall theme is there. Right. So here, this will be taken from very close to the church that I just mentioned, but maybe 2 minutes ago. that church. So you see, it's really due west, or maybe it's northwest. I don't quite remember. Of the center of the city, and the center is marked by this central bell tower. And this again, this is that center. Yeah, there's just different hotels, pubs. And this is that building that I said I don't know what it is, but it looks like some type of a government building. And this is a church. I think this is a church in what we just mentioned a few minutes ago. That's a small church, if you can find it. So this photo, I think it is where is that one? Yeah, it's this church. It's this church. So, and here I made a couple of panoramas. I just I stood there and I handheld the camera. So these panoramas are practically junk, but nevertheless. They give you I keep those photos. I keep these photos because they give you an idea of what it was like in the location. It does. These are not really good photos aesthetically, but yeah, it is how it is, right? So this is I think. I'm not quite sure. I'm not quite sure what this building is, but probably is is this the town hall? I'm not entirely sure. I think maybe this is the back of the town hall, but anyway, this is the canal, and if you cross this bridge, you will reach the city square. That's I know for sure. I just don't know what this building is for. And this. That's basically if you cross this bridge, you will reach this area, and this is the town square. You see I think this is a town hall, maybe at least the old one, and maybe this is the working one, the functional one. So what I mean is that this probably is turned into a museum, and here's a number of pubs, restaurants. There's a very elegantly, very well decorated building here, and I think there's a museum there too. This would be the row of pubs facing, I think, facing south, facing south on the Grand Market, facing the Bell Tower. You see here, I think, what was the time taken? It was about lunchtime, 11:40. So you see a lot of people starting to dine there, and also again a very beautiful sunny day. And this probably gives you a good view of the relation between the two bell towers, right? This is the Grand Market, and this is that church in the southwest of the town. And as you can see, there was certainly no shortage of tourists there. Business was booming. And this is the Grand Market panorama. You see the tower, you see a museum, you see a lot of tourists, and you see the event. Here is another angle. You see the equipment there. So I guess probably, let's not guess. I don't know for sure what event it was. Probably something to do with music. But certainly had a lot to do with beer. And this will be inside that the courtyard of the museum. You see the museum here, and you see the hospital and the church and the bell tower towards the back. I probably should have taken more photos, another roll of photos, to stitch this panorama a bit taller, but I didn't. All right, so this is that album that I took of photos I took in Bruges in 2018. Thank you very much for watching this video. I will come back in the next video about photos. I think discussing something. I think discussing an album that I took of photos I took in Versailles. I think in the spring, in the summer of 2018 at night. I think those were some very interesting photos. I don't always go to Versailles at night, but when I did, that time it was brilliant. Thank you for watching and have a great day.